Well, so for the second straight year, an Ohio State wide receiver goes in the top 10, and what a home run pick for Seattle Joey Galloway was for Rick Meyer. Now the quarterback that was drafted right ahead of Meyer a few years ago, Drew Bledsoe, gets another Ohio State player in Terry Glenn. Certainly Bledsoe had major problems last year as he went from a Pro Bowl season to a season of indecision, insecurity really in the pocket, throwing off back feet. But you draft the wide receiver number 1, Sterling Sharp, and I guess Drew Bledsoe has to feel a lot more confident right now. What are your thoughts on Glenn from Ohio State? Even though Sterling only had 1 full year to show what he could do over the course of the season, having played behind Galloway before.
And Chris, I think that is the big thing right there. Is he was like a one-year wonder, and everything on that offense, along with Eddie George and Bobby Horn, clicked. But he's a player. He's a guy. He's a big hitter. He can go downtown. He's got great speed. And the one thing you'll see right here is he plays off the ground a lot. He's not a very big guy. And playing in New England where he's going to get bumped around a lot and he's going to be asked to go inside a lot. He's got good body control, but he plays awfully high. And he's one of those kind of guys that loves to get out there and get the great speed going, get those legs going. And he's going to come up with the football. He's got pretty good body control here, as you'll see, moving around the defender. But the one thing you have to question is football very important to this guy. I mean, he's got excellent speed. Nobody's going to question that, or his toughness. He's a pretty good blocker for his size. But does he really want to play football? I mean, most of the big hitters you can see here, most of his passes are post routes and go routes. And he's going to have, of course, Ben Coates working the underneath stuff. But I'm not sure this is the pick for that type of offense. Marvin Harrison is the best receiver in the draft, not by far. I think he's better than Keyshawn Johnson technique-wise. But I think the one thing you have to look at here is Terry Glenn's desire, his ability to play off the ground, which he does a lot. Can he keep his feet on the ground? And you're not going to run a lot of post routes and go routes in the NFL because everybody can run in that league. Mel, back to you in New York.
Sterling, I spent a couple days in California last week with Drew Bledsoe, the quarterback of the Patriots, and I'll tell you, when you talk to Drew, man, he wanted wide receiver help. He wanted weapons to come into that Patriot offense and allow him to have the kind of year he's capable of, and I think he's applauding this pick. Rather than going defense, Bobby Greer, who's handled the draft now instead of Bill Parcells, wanted to get him that weapon. He brought in Sean Jefferson, an inconsistent veteran. Of course, they have Vincent Brisby. They think will be a good number 2 guy to complement Ben Coates, but they needed a speed receiver, and this is the kind of player that Drew Bledsoe, I know, is applauding coming to New England.
Couldn't agree with you more. And all you have to do is take a look at the economics in this thing. Drew Bledsoe got about $42 million. If you've got a quarterback that you pay that much money to, you've got to find people to allow him to throw the football to. That's the bottom line here. You invested a ton of money in a guy who's a thrower. You have to go and help him in any way you can. I think this is an excellent pick for New England.
Well, Drew Bledsoe, let's make no mistake about it. I have my theory on his problems last year, and obviously not the main reason. We've said it on game day, is that I think he was almost embarrassed. Such a good kid. He was almost embarrassed to make that much money. He almost thought he had to live up to it so much. Now you get him a receiver. He's more confident. Do you do Glenn over Harrison, though, in this choice, Joe?
I don't necessarily think so. I look for the bigger guy, the faster guy. I tend to agree with Sterling. I think Keyshawn Johnson and Marvin Harrison probably best 2 in this draft. But you certainly can't discount Glenn's ability to be able to go after the football. This kid can go get it. If it's out there, he's going to find a way to get it. You got to love that in this particular individual. And New England plays in a division where the ball's in the air a lot, and you have to put points on the board. It's not a black and blue division. It's an air everybody division.
Carolina is next up on the clock, and this draft has fallen perfectly for them. They wanted a running back. They wanted Tim Biakabatuka, and he's fallen. There weren't that many scenarios in which he would fall to 8 without them moving. They haven't had to move. That's going to be Carolina's pick. When we return, we'll see if our rattle in the dark is correct with Tim Biakabatuka. Buckeye wideouts. Galloway and Sanders last year, Glenn this year.
With the 8th choice in the first round, the Carolina Panthers select Tim Biakabatuka, running back, Michigan.
Tim Biakabatuka, one of the 11 draftees or potential draftees here in New York. He's on the phone with the Carolina Brass. And you talk about a guy that came forward in a big game. Well, you can ask the kid that just went ahead of Tim Biakabatuka, Terry Glenn, about Biakabatuka's 300-plus yards in the game that Michigan beat Ohio State to keep him out of the Rose Bowl. He's got everything, Mel, you need in a running back, doesn't he?
He really does. As a pure running back, he's tremendous. He has the size. He's got unbelievable speed. He's been blazing 4.43s in just about any workout, and you see the instincts and the ability that he has, the shiftiness for a big back. And then, once he does break a tackle. I'll tell you, he can turn it on. He's got the jets, and he's got the speed, and he also has that shiftiness. He's not just a north-south straight-line runner. What he has to work on in the NFL, we're seeing all running plays here. What he has to work on in the NFL is catching the football. It was an area when he swung out of the backfield, he dropped some passes that you just have to haul onto and utilize that ability in the broken field. If he's going to become a multi-dimensional back in the NFL, what Carolina has to do is round off his talents, and then they have themselves a potential franchise back, Joe.
So Tim Bianca, but you're right. I'm gonna speak for Joe just at this moment.
Take it, Willie.
Bianca Batuka is exactly what Carolina wanted. Let's go up to Bristol with Chris Fowler and the coach and Mike Lombardi. And I know you applaud this pick. You know what productivity this young man has.
Well, Tim Bianca Batuka is a great story, Chris and Mike. One of 11 children. Money, frankly, a big motivator for him to come out early in this draft. He still has 2 sisters back in Zaire, but he's trying to get to America and help his parents support the other 8 brothers and sisters who are hanging around up in North America. Talk about him as a running back, Mike, versus Tyrone Wheatley, a guy taken out of Michigan last year who, frankly, did not have the great rookie season.
Well, I think this player has the kind of running back skills that we look for. He's a square runner. He hits the hole with great acceleration. He breaks tackles as he runs. He's very good after he gets hit the first time. I think he's hard to make contact with. The erect runners are very easily tackled, and I think Tim Bianca Batuka is very difficult to tackle.
He has great football instincts, and of course he learned those football instincts in the hotbeds of Zaire and Montreal. It just shows you that in this global age there is NFL talent everywhere. Let's go down to Gary Danielson.
All right, Chris, when you talk about Tim Bianca Batuka, the only question marks you have, and obviously he does get in the hole well, he gets out, he's got great speed, is his hands in receiving. He does not catch the ball well. And durability. When you talk to the Michigan coaches before this season started, they questioned the toughness of Tim Bianca Batuka. When you watch him play, when he carried the ball a lot, he got nicked, he got hurt a little bit. I think Eddie George is the player. That's the guy I would like to line up. Wouldn't be surprised if the next Big Ten player doesn't go. Oilers are on the clock. It'll be Eddie George next. Let's go back now to Chris Berman. Chris?
All right, Gary, thank you. And certainly Eddie George could go immediately to Houston, who cut Gary Brown last night. Houston actually had to cut a player who's now on the clock. The Oilers are. They had to cut a player to be allowed to draft. They had cap problems and actually had to make that cut. Now they're allowed to draft, and we think it could be Eddie George. But let's go to Craig James on your thoughts on Bianca Batuka and his running style.
Well, a couple of years ago, Chris, I went to Michigan, had a chance to spend some time, did a story on Tim, and he really was just learning the game of football. He was using his instincts, and he was running and having a great time. The thing that impresses me the most about him is that he has learned the game of football, and against Big Ten competition was truly outstanding. That, in my mind, is almost a step or two below playing in the National Football League because it is a hard, tough-nosed division of football, and he excelled against the top teams. There's a world of knowledge in front of him that he's got to pick up. He's got to pick up the passing game, the receiving game, the blitz schemes from the NFL. Those will be the challenges for Tim because he hasn't played a lot of football. And in the NFL, in order for him to be a 3-down back and stay in there the entire time, he must learn the passing game. That's going to be his greatest challenge.
Yeah, but if the huddle is bilingual, he knows French and English, and there's no problem. We also know that Bianca Batuka, what a great name for Scrabble. 11 letters in Bianca Batuka, which got me to thinking, which is dangerous, who in the first round ever had more letters in his first name, and we found 4. Oddly enough, one of the men he'll be running behind, Blake Brockermeyer, 12 letters in his name, 95 to Carolina. Dana Stubblefield, a 12-letter first-rounder. Steve Pizarkowicz and Carl Barzalauskas. Those are the only ones with longer names than Bianca Batuka. We thought you wanted to know.
You work hard to own a $30,000 luxury car.
The 61st NFL draft. We are on pick number 9 with the Houston Oilers. About a little more than 9 minutes for them on the clock. Right now, though, let's go down to the podium and join Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, who has a special announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please, for a moment. At this time, I would ask you to focus with us on a tragic event this week that deeply affected all of us in the National Football League and in sports generally. The death of Brooke Beringer, the University of Nebraska quarterback who lost his life this week in an airplane accident. I would ask you to join us in a moment of silence.